Hey, welcome at the second webinar of H3 Society. This is the second week and it's all about relentless curiosity. It's about asking great questions and observing your customer in the wild. This week we've changed the setup for the webinar slightly. It's shorter, it's better, it's faster, just as you've come to know from H3 Society. And this time again, we want to emphasize that it's not just about content, it's about your experiment. And in this week, as you're still searching to understand the problem that you're trying to solve, it's again a qualitative experiment. So taking what you think is the problem and figuring out how it shows up in the life of your users or your customers. That's the key to building a killer product, and that's the key to building a killer business. Really going beyond the questions that everybody else asks and figuring out the unmet needs of your customer, and that takes great observational powers and it takes awesome questions. If you don't try to go that extra mile and if you fall in love with your own ideas, you're unable to change them and then you're going to be in big trouble. The obvious questions are the ones that other people ask as well. And if you stay at their level, you'll end up with a Me Too product. It won't ever become that 10x thing that you're looking for. There are two things that are really important to understand in this part of your journey. One, your job to be done. That's the job that your customer or user is trying to achieve. And only if you understand the job your customer is trying to achieve and how they currently experience that process, can you figure out if you can help them achieve it better. And it's all about helping your customers to do a better, easier job for themselves. The hard part with that is, your customer may be trying to achieve something completely different than what you had in mind. So it's all about understanding that your customer doesn't want to buy a drill, for instance, but they want a hole in their wall so that they can hang their painting. And that's a different story. And once you start to figure that out, you can see how to help them to make their life easier. And that means that you have to forget about the solution that you had in the back of your head. You need to step into your customer's shoes and you have to ask them super good questions to figure out the problem from their point of view. And again, it's all about curiosity. So the second part is confirmation bias. Let's face it, being wrong feels bad, being rejected feels worse. So the fear of putting your ideas into the world and really understanding how a user or customer experiences a problem is real. Chances are they have a totally different view than you. Maybe they don't even have that problem in the first place. And getting that kind of feedback means going back to the drawing board. That stings. It's natural to have a tendency to look for the answers and the observations that are in line with what you expected. And that's super dangerous. That's confirmation bias. It's going to get you in trouble. When you're asking questions, when you're observing, make a point of trying to find the contradictions, the things that are different than what you expected. Train yourself to be extra curious when you find those things. Those contradicting answers may lead you to the real problem behind the problem you thought you had, and they may lead you to the unexplored white space on the map, the 10x solution. How do you get into the right mindset for that? Well, think about it. There's no reason to be attached to a specific solution that you came up with. Ideas are free, and this is just one solution to the puzzle. So instead of feeling disappointed, see it as a gift if some user gives you feedback like that. Maybe they just saved you months of work going into the wrong direction. It's not your job as an entrepreneur to get it right the first time. It's your job to solve the puzzle and to take another step towards solution. Remember that you can learn more from one counterexample than from 100 positive examples. When you're trying to understand the problem, a key skill is observation. You won't learn a thing sitting behind your desk dreaming about an ideal world. It's simply impossible to come up with solid ideas of how other people live, think and experience things. You really need to get out of the building and get some evidence. And one of the best ways to do that is to observe actual behavior. After all, people can tell you all kinds of different stories. In the end, it's their behavior that counts. And you can do this online, you can do it offline. Just find a place where you can observe behavior, like a mall or Google Analytics, and find out what people are actually doing. And be curious, so what are they buying? How long are they staying? What do they wear? Do they have curious workarounds to get their job done? Do they seem happy? Do they seem frustrated? All those things are important. An even more insightful way to get feedback is to ask questions. There's a warning in that. People lie. And they might not even know that they're actually doing that. It's just socially acceptable behavior to be nice. So when you're interviewing people, you need to be extra careful to go beyond your confirmation bias and to make sure that it's harder for them to inadvertently lie to you. And it's all about asking the right questions. For instance, a question like, would you buy product X when it comes to the market? That's a bad question. Why? Well, first of all, it's a yes-no question, so there's not a lot of information. But more important than that, it's not texting actual behavior, it's hypothetical. And it costs the other person nothing to just tell you what they think you want to hear. A better question could be, can you describe the last time you experienced this situation? Well, that's an open question, so you get more information, but asking for a detailed description makes it much less likely for a person to lie to you, because that's just hard, it takes effort. So if they didn't experience that problem, they will just tell you, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, instead of making up something that they think you want to hear. The book The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick has tons of ideas and ways to ask better questions. The most important things are ask for actual behavior, not hypothetical situation. Ask open questions, have follow-up to get even more information. So can you tell me more about what happened when you had that situation, something like that. And don't ask leading questions. So don't let them know what you think that they should answer, because then they will just tell you that. So now we've come to experiment 2. You're going to do this in practice. And once you've defined your problem and what you think the job that your customers want to get done is, it's time to have some interviews and to test that. The most important thing there is to be prepared. So prepare a list of who you can have a call or coffee with and make sure you book their time. You might have to come up with an excuse so that you don't inadvertently already tell them what it's all about. Second one is prepare a short list of questions. 3 to 5 questions is good. Do a dry run with a colleague or an unsuspecting bystander to see if your questions actually make sense. And have the interview together with a team member. To observe more than one, you can divide the roles. So one is the interviewer and the other one is a note taker or observer. Well, you don't always have to follow your script. You have to follow your curiosity, but it's always good to have this as a fallback. And just remember to try to get into the user's perspective. They should be talking, not you. So stay curious. We are curious to see your logbooks and experiments, and we'll see you next week.